Hey guys, Roo here. It's time to take a stroll down memory lane. G'day guys, well thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Roo Remembers. I thought I'd keep up with the 1995 theme that we kind of started last week, where I was sort of thinking back to the start of my rugby league journey and how I got into the Warriors. And then that got me thinking when I was thinking about the first game against the Broncos, and then funnily enough last week we played the Broncos at Redcliffe, game I was lucky enough to be at. Got me thinking about another memorable game that we played against the Broncos in 1995, probably for all the wrong reasons as a Warriors fan, but this did happen to be the first ever live Warriors game that I went to. That was round 22 in 1995. Back then they only had the 22 round seasons of the Australian Rugby League as it was then, and it was the Auckland Warriors up against the Brisbane Broncos at the old ANZ Stadium, which is the QE2 running track as it is now, but back then the Broncos had a 10-year stint, I think it was, at what was called ANZ Stadium back then, and that was located at Mount Gravatt, not too far away from where I live here in sort of Greater Brisbane. And the Warriors needed to win this game to qualify for the finals in their first ever season, so it was a crucial match, and the Broncos had had a very strong season as well. So it was interesting being my former team up against my new team. And I remember that afternoon, my sister had had a performance, violin performance, I think it was, in the city. So we was kind of racing the clock to get back to Mount Gravatt in order to make the game. It's a really hot day, as I remember. And we turned up to the stadium and it was packed. There was about 56,000 people there. Back then, the Broncos, it wasn't unheard of for them to get 40 to 50,000 people at ANZ Stadium for a game. So I remember turning up and just being starving. So I thought I'll just head to to get some food for me and my dad who were at the game. And turns out, because it was such a large crowd, I spent 30 minutes in line just trying to get a sausage roll and a tub of chips and some food for me and dad. As it turns out, I missed pretty much all of the first half. But when I got back to my seat, it was already 28-0 to the Broncos. Steve Renouf, probably one of my favourite players of all time, had an absolute field day. He ended up scoring 4 tries in that match. But I remember sitting there watching the second half. The damage wasn't so bad in the second half. It ended up getting to 44-0 to the Broncos before Gene Namu finally crossed for the Warriors in the dying minutes. And I'll never forget all these Warriors flags all of a sudden just popping up all around the ground. And yeah, that's something that I'll always remember because we've always had such awesome support in Brisbane. So yeah, not the result that we would have wanted in terms of the Warriors, but nevertheless, it was the first ever game that I went to live to watch the Warriors in their first season. Funnily enough, we wore these white jerseys that day. We only wore the white jerseys 3 times in 1995, and all 3 times we got beaten by 40. So I don't know if that was a bad omen or what, but this is one of the most popular Warriors jerseys that we've had over the years, and yeah, it's probably a little known fact that it didn't bring us anything but bad luck when we wore it. But I always love to represent the old 1995 colours, being that, being a fan since the early days. So yeah, that was the first ever Warriors game that I went to, and I'd be keen to find out what are your memories of the early days of the Warriors. Did any of you guys go to any games in 1995? Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and follow us on Roo and Hammer, and please comment and join in the conversation. Thanks guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Hey guys, well I forgot to mention that this was the 4th and final appearance in a Warriors jersey of Mike Doreen. You might know Mike Doreen as the man behind the Mike Doreen Cup. He was the first ever player to play for the Warriors and the Tigers, so he made 4 appearances for the Auckland Warriors in 1995, and this was his final appearance in a Warriors jersey. Probably not the way he wanted to go out either. But regardless, all great memories, and I just love to reminisce about the early days, 1995. So, guys, as I said before, please don't forget to share your stories as well, and let's keep the conversation going. Awesome. Cheers, guys.